Hey friends, I am Jill and welcome back to a Spring Willow farm. It is another day in the greenhouse and another episode of my seed starting series. I just started this. I hope you guys have been enjoying it. So last week we covered on knowing when to start your seeds, and this week we're going to cover sourcing out seeds and knowing how many to plant. And so this is a question we get asked often, so we're going to deep dive today. I'm going to show you where I source my seed and why. I do kind of source from quite a few companies, and it is for specific reasons, so I'm going to talk about that with you today. So I hope you guys are ready to just jump into it. Nathan also said that many of you guys have been asking about my gardening apps. I did want to go ahead and give you guys references for that. And so you guys know I do a lot of my journaling and note taking on my iPad. I use an app called GoodNotes. I'm going to put it up down here so you guys can see. And within that, you can buy a lot of different templates on Etsy and have them downloaded to your GoodNotes, which is what I do. So I do have a couple gardening apps, pretty basic, that are just a garden planner. I am going to find the link where I purchased those and put it down in the description. But once you buy kind of that host of GoodNotes, or there's a lot of different ones that are probably similar to that, I'm sure, you can go online and just download a lot of things to that. And then if you have an iPad and an Apple Pencil or any sort of pencil like that, you're able to just kind of go in and jot things down and erase it. You can also send it to your computer and print it off to have record. So there is a lot of things you can do within those apps. So I do think that they are fun and helpful, and I've never spent more than like $7 on one of them before. And so I certainly feel like that was worth it. But I did want to get that resource out for you guys, those of you who have been asking about it on the front end of this video. It'll be in the description below. All right, so I first wanted to talk to you guys about sourcing your seeds. So I'm gonna have a few options laid out here for us to look at. Now, over the years of being a gardener, I've ordered seeds from multiple places, and some of them I liked, some of them I didn't, and it really was just kind of dependent on a lot of different things. But the ones I'm going to tell you today are companies that I have ordered from several times. I can trust their germination rate. I feel good about the quality of seeds that I'm getting. And so that's a big deal too, is I think it's important to experiment, try a new company, but also within that, if you're having to start, your tomato seeds 2 or 3 times because it just had a really low germination rate, I don't think that's a good use of your time. And so I think you'll find too, over time, you might have bought from one place and then change your mind, or maybe you got introduced to a new place. I know when I first started gardening, I only ordered my seeds from one particular place, and I was like dead set on only ordering from that particular place. And through the years, I found that I had found other companies who had higher germination rates. It worked better for, the type of growing that I was doing, the varieties that they offered. So know that it's going to change some. I do encourage you, buy from multiple places and kind of do your own assessment. Take those detailed notes and figure out what's going to work best for you and your farm. I know this year, we are doing hybrid varieties in the tunnel. And so all of those are going to come from Johnny's Seeds. Now, I get asked a lot if I'm an affiliate with Johnny's. I am not. I don't make any money or any commissions off of their stuff. They are just one of the only producers that is really geared towards a market gardener high producer. Now, technically, am I a market gardener? No. But I do strive for efficiency and production. Therefore, Johnny's usually can meet that need for me as far as having those hybrid varieties, those varieties specific for high tunnel and production. Which is actually all we're growing in the tunnel this year. I think I had mentioned that to you guys before, and I don't find that I can find that variety anywhere else other than Johnny's. Their germination rate is great, and so if you are looking for some of those hybrid varieties, I think Johnny's would be the #1 source where I would tell you guys to go and check out, and that's just because I've had really good success with them. I like the quality of the produce that I'm yielding. It tastes good. It's, high yielding, which is obviously a plus. And so I would say if, you know, hybrid and high producing varieties are something that you are wanting to grow on your farms, Johnny for sure is going to be a #1 there. So last year I grew a ton of flowers. It was like my first year to really like hone in on flowers. I was just like, I mean, my goodness, I was just like wooed by the possibilities when it came to growing flowers. My mind was opened up, and so I grew a lot. I'm not sure if you guys remember, but I grew so many zinnia varieties. I had zinnias out the wazoo, and it was beautiful. All of those came from Botanical Interest, which I don't actually have any of their flower seeds right now. I do have squash because I went through and ordered a bunch of winter squash. We've got, you know, spaghetti squash, honey nut, this red curry. And so I really like Botanical Interest. I think their flowers do really, really well. Anytime I've grown any of their vegetables, they do well. I've also found that their price point is really reasonable. And when I was doing microgreens for a while, you could buy like bulk options there. Another thing too that really grabs my attention, and this is silly. I'm going to tell you it's silly, but it's something that catches my eye, and this may be the same for you. If you see their packaging, it is eye-catching. They have put a lot of time into their packaging, and so I find that if I'm in a store and they have seeds, I'm usually always going to pick up some Botanical Interest ones because I like to visually be able to see what it's going to look like. And that is one thing with Johnny's, is you're going to have to reference that on their website, and so that might just be something to be mindful of. But I have grown flowers and vegetables from Botanical Interest. I think that their germination is great. I think that everything I've bought has produced really well for me and my needs. And so they're definitely one that I would tell you, they are USDA organic along with Johnny's, which is also really important. And they have that little label right there on their packaging, so you know that. And another thing with Botanical Interest that is probably one of my favorite thing is how detailed the back of the seed packet is. Now, one thing about Baker Creek, I'm sure many of you guys know Baker Creek. They're known for their heirloom seeds. I don't think there's anything wrong with Baker Creek. However, I've kind of transitioned out of growing any of their stuff just because I've really struggled with germination. But if I want to grow some sort of funky variety, they would be the place that I would buy it from. I'm certainly not bashing them or talking bad about them. I've just kind of honed in on which ones I'm buying bulk from. But if you can tell the difference in the two of these, the back of the seed packet, Botanical Interest is super, super detailed. You can actually rip back the back too, and there's a ton of information. Versus, you know, some of the other seed packets may not have as much in-depth information. For me, that is kind of a game changer. If I'm grabbing the back of a seed packet and it's not really telling me anything, and it's not just, I mean, I think, you know, Baker Creek has a pretty good general overview, but some of the varieties is pretty vague. Even with like Johnny's, they have a lot of online resources where you can go in. Florette, if you buy flower seeds from her, if you go to her actual website, she's pretty in-depth on some of the information. And so I think that that's just a really good resource. And so Botanical Interest is one that I order from often. Obviously, like I just mentioned, if I have some sort of crazy variety I want to grow, I will grow from Baker Creek. Just for me personally, I've had a harder time with their germination being consistent. I have bought from seeds now. Now I'm just going to tell you guys some of the places I've sourced from. I don't buy from them often. I do not have good germination rates, but they do have some unique varieties. Another place that I like to order from, and it is certainly not one that I'm ordering bulk of what I am growing, I'm ordering it for their artist pack. So Hudson Valley Seed Co. It's actually where I get all my garlic. So it is a great resource for stuff like that. And if you are a small home gardener, they are a lovely company. And so they do these little artist packs where they partner up with an artist and they create these, and they've just got, so this was only 30 seeds, you know, so tiny little seed packet inside, but you have this beautiful piece of art. And so I went through and bought a bunch of these to be able to like do something fun and funky with it. I don't know, just look how stunning that is. And then on the inside, there's like the whole story. of this. And then it also tells you about the artist and who the artist is. And so stuff like that, I just can really support the idea of like supporting artisans like that. I think it's really cool. So I do have a lot from Hudson Valley Seed Co. just that are artist bundles that I would want to do something with, because I think that that's really cool. All right, the last place I'm going to share with you guys is our friends over at Hess Tools. We are partners with Hess. We love being partners with them. We get most of our tools from them, our harvesting buckets. They also have a great seed collection. One of the things about Hess that I really love along with Johnny's is that you can have bulk options. You can buy like 1 pound things of seeds, which is huge if you're doing like cover crops or you're seeding microgreens. They even have all these like microgreen kits. And so I've always had excellent germination rates. Hess has a great variety of vegetables and flowers available. One thing I would mention, if you do buy their seeds, make sure that you're referencing their website, because there isn't a whole lot of information on the back of the seed packet. It does tell you what lot it came from, the germ rate, when it was tested, spacing and things like that. But any like extra thing you want, you might want to just do a quick Google search, or I'm sure you can find information on their website. But we've grown Hess Tools seeds for several years now and have had really good luck. They have some of my favorite cucumber seeds. And then last year at our old farm, all of our tomatoes that we grew, there was like a couple paste tomatoes that came from Botanical Interest, but the rest of them, like the Ace 55, all of those were really good producers, very disease resistant, and they all came from Hess Tools. So those are kind of my go-tos. This year, the bulk of everything we got was from Johnny's, and that is because we were growing so much of it. So our flower seeds came from Johnny's this year. A lot of our hybrid vegetable seeds came from Johnny's this year, but I do encourage you, buy from all of these places. I think it is important to support these businesses and what they're doing and offering, us home gardeners and farmers, and whether you're growing on a hobby level or a commercial business level, I just think it's important to kind of do your own assessment and figure out which one of these companies is going to work best for you, if not all of them. You can see I've got all of this stacks of seeds from all of these different places because I like to find new seeds and try new seeds, and I think that that is important. And so I will link everyone that I've mentioned down in the description below. You guys can go if you haven't already been shopping. One thing I wanted to mention too, because I bought seeds from this place last year and I didn't actually get a chance to grow it. I wonder if I have it in here. I don't think I have it in here. And I was introduced to this seed company through Jessica. She was telling me about this really cool company that did these crosses. And the company is called Row 7. I've only bought one thing from them. Like I said, I didn't have a chance to grow it yet. They didn't have, this was last year granted, they didn't have a huge selection available, but their crosses were like crossed specifically for culinary and like the cooking experience and the taste experience, which I thought was really, really neat. And so I will put them down in the description below if you guys want to go check it out and you're wanting to grow specifically for like flavor and things like that. I think that they would be a really cool resource, and I might actually end up pulling some of the squashes that I bought from them and throw them in the garden. A little crazy, won't be that big of a deal. We do have kind of a really tight regimen and schedule with the garden and rotation with the garden this year, but I'm sure I could find an extra space somewhere just to throw a seed or two in there and see. So that's my seed resources. Now let's move on to knowing how many things to start. So there will be a lot of variables when it comes to knowing how much to start, knowing how many plants to buy. Say maybe you're not in a position to start your own seeds. That is totally okay. If you are growing food, that is a powerful thing. You are changing systems. You are being sustainable in whichever way suits you best right now. So even though I am kind of doing this seed starting series, just know when I'm talking about this, if you're not starting your seeds and you're buying from a local farm, or even if you're buying from a nursery, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Again, this is an important thing, knowing if you are starting your own seeds, how many you start, or if you are buying, how many you need to buy. I think a lot of that is going to be dependent on your layout and your garden size, right? So say maybe you have 5 people in your family, but you have a small space to garden. You're gonna want to really kind of transition into that intensive rotational succession planting style to be able to yield what you need to for your family size. Now, say you have a garden like me. I've got, I don't know, probably 10,000 square feet of just raised bed gardening. That is more than enough to be able to feed my family of 5. And so it is going to depend on your size. So this is where I think jotting those things down, keeping up with the garden journal is going to be super important, because you can figure out your layout, you can figure out your beds, you can also figure out, okay, am I going to be able to plant one succession? Am I going to have multiple successions to meet the number of food or the amount of food that I want to produce in my garden? And I think that that's going to kind of help you figure out what seeds you need to source too. If you're going to be doing, you know, high yield and production, because you are in a smaller space, you might want to go with a company that's suited best and has the right varieties for that. Now, when I was looking for this, I found a website that I had referenced several times. I am going to link it below. It is morningchores.com, and she actually has a calculator where you can put in your family size and it will calculate how many plants you need. So I am going to try to show you guys this because I think it's really cool. Google is your friend. Most of the time it's not. In this case, it is your friend. You can Google and find some awesome resources to where if you're not in a place where you can do the math, and I can tell you what's going to work best for me, but it's working best for me, the size of my family, and the size of my garden. So I cannot tell you, okay, you need to plant or you need to start 200 tomato plants, which is a lot, or you need to start, you know, 30 pepper plants, because there is just not a way for me to calculate that for you, because there are a lot of different variables. So when I found this calculator, when I was kind of laying out this video, I thought, wow, this is a really good resource, and so I'm going to share it with you guys. Hopefully you all can see it pretty well. All right, so it will say on here to enter your family's, the size of your family. So I am going to put 5, and when I did that, it auto-populated the number of plants I needed to start, independent on the variety. So we'll read some of these guys with you. And it tells you a harvest needed in pounds, the row length. So let's say my family of 5, I was wanting to plant snap beans. So let's say for my family of 5, I was wanting to plant snap beans. It tells me to yield 75 pounds. I would need to have a row length of 63 feet, and I would need 189 plants. Let's go down to something maybe that we're familiar with. Let's find the tomatoes on here. Tomatoes. So if I wanted to yield 120 pounds and I planted a 120 foot bed, I would only need 48 tomatoes. Obviously, tomatoes are going to be producing way more per plant than probably your lima beans or something like that. And so this is really, really cool. I'm not saying be married to this. The idea of starting however many that said on the beans, like that, the lima beans said what, 189 snap beans? You know, that's kind of jarring. You're like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can start that many. When you think about it, you can buy a 128 cell tray of something. It's mainly knowing, do I have this space in my garden? And so you can find these calculators that'll kind of do the back end math for you, which I think is very, very valuable. And then what you would have to do is figure out your size and say, okay, am I in a place where I can grow this, or I just know, okay, I don't have the size, even if I succession sowed these things. So then that gives you the ability to start planning out where you're going to source this from. Is that from farmers markets? Is it from, you know, different farmers that you know? Are you just going to the grocery store and buying it organic? But it kind of, I think, sets you up with clear expectations from the get-go. Because a lot of times when we start gardens, we have these aspirations of growing all of our family's food needs, and that is hard. For me, I've been gardening for about 10 years now, and I provide most of my family's plant needs. However, there are still some things I don't provide, and that is something that I just know that that's okay. And I go and I buy those things, you know, from our local farm store, and I support other farmers. And sometimes it's just not in season, or I didn't grow enough, or I didn't have the space, and that's okay. All of our, you know, winter squashes, I have not grown any of those. So I source those out because I don't have the space for them. I choose to utilize the space I do have for different crops that are going to be easier to preserve, and I can have multiple uses, like tomatoes, for instance. I can freeze those. I can make diced tomatoes. I can make tomato paste. I can make ketchup. We can eat them fresh. We can make salsa. So there's a lot of versatile uses that my family can eat up tomatoes, versus if I were to just grow a bunch of butternut squash. More than likely, we're just eating that with soups. I also make a really good spaghetti sauce out of butternut squash with some cream cheese. It tastes so good. But I'm limited, right? Like, there's not as many ways to be able to utilize the squash as there is the tomatoes. And so I just kind of take that assessment and I just rule that one out, and I'll just source it from someone else, which I don't think there's anything wrong with. And so I wish I had a straightforward answer. For tomatoes, you need to start this many. For peppers, you need to start or buy this many. But there are too many variables involved to be able to give you a straightforward answer. But what I can give you is resources, and resources are powerful in their knowledge, and you can do the necessary steps to ensure that you are starting or growing or buying enough for your family. So I'm going to link this little calculator down below. I do encourage you guys, I'm sure if you just Googled, there would be several resources. This is just a resource. I went to her page several times just to kind of gain information on particular things, and I think that that would give you a good idea. And then maybe invest in one of those gardening apps, like I mentioned and put in the description below, and you can kind of jot that out, and you'll be able to write it down and figure out and do your, you know, assessment on what can stay, what can go. I think that is the hardest part of gardening, is knowing that you can't always put everything in the garden that you want. I wish that we could. Trust me, I certainly wish that I could, but that's not always the case, and so sometimes you just have to rotate those things out. Well, beautiful friends, it has been a pleasure hanging out with you guys in my greenhouse. Stay tuned, because next week's video is going to be my friend Lauren and I over at Berkeley Farms tackling and answering all of your plant sale questions. We did a live on our Instagram, and we are making a YouTube version of that to kind of help you guys if y'all are thinking about selling plants this year, better equipped you to do that. But thank you guys so much for hanging out, and I'll talk to you soon.